Hey man, a lot of men go through life thinking that effort alone should earn them love. They believe that if they're kind enough, patient enough, loyal enough, then the woman they want will naturally see their worth and choose them. But reality doesn't work that way. Attraction isn't a reward system. It's not something you unlock like a prize. The girl you want might not want you back, not because you're lacking, not because you're unlovable, and not because she's blind, but because the emotional story playing in her head does not match the effort you're giving. Women don't respond to logic or fairness the way men do. They respond to emotional impressions, to internal narratives, to feelings that often have nothing to do with who you are as a person. And until you understand that, you will continue feeling confused, rejected, and frustrated by outcomes that seem unfair. One reason she doesn't want you back is because she senses you want her more than you want yourself. When a woman feels that a man has placed her above his own self-respect, his own direction, his own priorities, she loses interest, not out of cruelty, but because imbalance kills attraction. Women are drawn to men who remain centered even in the presence of desire. When you bend too quickly, agree too fast, compliment too often, or try too hard, it signals to her nervous system that your world revolves around her approval. That doesn't make her feel chosen, it makes her feel responsible for your emotional state. And no woman wants to carry that weight. She doesn't reject you because you're weak. She rejects the emotional pressure that comes from feeling like you've abandoned yourself just to keep her. Another reason she doesn't want you back is because she doesn't feel challenged by you. Not in a disrespectful way, in an emotional way. When a woman feels she can predict everything about you, when there's no mystery, no tension, no uncertainty, she subconsciously categorizes you as someone who poses no emotional risk. And if you pose no risk, you often create no spark. Women don't consciously choose this. It's instinctive. They are pulled toward emotional experiences that make them feel alive. When you give her everything too easily, she feels nothing internally. Not because you're boring, but because you remove the psychological space where attraction grows. She needs to feel like you have a life beyond her, that you have edges, that you carry strength she can't fully understand yet. Without that, she sees you as safe, but not exciting. Sometimes she doesn't want you because your timing reveals your loneliness more than your value. A woman can feel the difference between a man who genuinely wants her and a man who simply wants connection, attention, or affection. If she senses you're coming from emptiness instead of abundance, she instinctively pulls away, not because she's unfair, but because emotional hunger creates pressure she doesn't want to absorb. Women are extremely sensitive to masculine energy states. If your energy says, "I need you to feel whole," she steps back. If your energy says, "I'm whole already, but I'd like to share it with you," she steps forward. The problem is that most men approach her from the first state, and she can feel it before you say a word. Sometimes she doesn't want you back because you revealed your intentions too quickly. When you show all your cards before she feels anything for you, you remove all emotional curiosity from the connection. She no longer gets to discover you. You handed her the conclusion at the beginning. Attraction thrives in slow unfolding. It needs space to grow. It needs subtlety. When you rush the process because you fear losing her, you accidentally kill the very energy needed to keep her. She might appreciate the attention. She might enjoy the validation, but it won't pull her toward you. It won't anchor her emotionally. It won't trigger desire. And desire, not appreciation, is what makes her choose you. Sometimes she doesn't want you back because she never had to imagine losing you. You were always there, always reachable, always emotionally available, always present the moment she called. And humans, not just women, devalue what feels guaranteed. If you want someone deeply, but you behave like you're willing to give them everything without them giving anything in return, they subconsciously read that as low self-worth. Even if you're kind, even if you're loyal, even if you're stable, your consistency becomes predictable. Your predictability becomes familiarity, and familiarity becomes invisibility. You didn't get rejected for lack of value. You got rejected because she never had to consider the possibility of a world where you weren't around. There are moments when she doesn't want you because she associates you with comfort, not desire. Comfort is calm, but desire is emotional. Comfort makes her feel safe, but desire makes her feel alive, and most men confuse the two. They invest so heavily in being her emotional provider that they forget attraction comes from polarity, not comfort alone. When you offer emotional warmth without direction, generosity without boundaries, affection without tension, you unintentionally place yourself in a role closer to a caretaker than a potential partner. Women want emotional comfort, but only from a man whose presence she feels drawn to first. When that draw is missing, Your comfort becomes background noise. Another reason she doesn't want you is because she felt you weren't leading yourself. A woman may like you, enjoy your presence, even feel emotionally connected, but if she senses you lack purpose, structure, ambition, or self-direction, she cannot attach herself romantically. Women fall for men who are anchored in their own path. When your life has momentum, she feels pulled into that momentum. When your life is stagnant, she feels like you're asking her to be your purpose. No one wants that responsibility. If she sensed you had more interest in her than in your own evolution, she instinctively stepped back because a man without direction eventually becomes emotionally dependent. Sometimes she doesn't want you back because you made her too important too early. You gave her a position in your life that she didn't earn yet. You prioritized her before she prioritized you. You invested emotionally while she was still evaluating. That imbalance doesn't make her feel special. It makes her feel pressured. She feels like she has to match emotions she doesn't feel yet, and rather than trying to force herself into those emotions, she walks away, not because you're wrong, but because she wasn't ready for the intensity you brought. Women commit when emotions build slowly, not when they're chased, not when they're pressured, and not when they're put on a pedestal they didn't ask for. And sometimes, the hardest truth of all, she doesn't want you back because she saw a version of you that didn't believe in his own value. Women can love a man who's imperfect, flawed, unsure, struggling, but they cannot love a man who doesn't respect himself. When she senses you'd tolerate anything just to keep her, she stops viewing you as a partner and starts viewing you as someone who lost his internal compass. She didn't reject your heart, she rejected the emotional posture you took while offering it. Because a man who stands firm in his worth is magnetic, and a man who collapses into insecurity becomes forgettable. There are moments when she doesn't choose you, not because she found someone better, but because she sensed you were emotionally available before she felt anything real. Women don't attach to men who are too open too early. They attach to men they feel they have to earn. If she felt you were already committed in your mind while she was still figuring out her feelings, she experienced emotional pressure. You didn't intend to pressure her. You were simply expressing interest. But women feel overwhelmed when a man gives them emotional certainty before they feel attraction. She steps away not because you did something wrong, but because the connection reached a level of intensity she wasn't ready for. Another reason she doesn't want you is because she saw no emotional polarity. Attraction for women lives in contrast, softness and strength, mystery and clarity, warmth and restraint. When you give her only one type of energy, usually warmth, she loses emotional stimulation. You become predictable in a way that doesn't activate her instincts. She doesn't feel pulled toward you, she feels gently cared for. And while care is important, care without polarity doesn't create desire. She may like you, trust you, even appreciate you, but desire comes from a man who brings an element she can't fully control or fully predict. When everything about you is available, obvious, and easy to read, the emotional spark dies quietly. Sometimes the reason she doesn't want you back is because you showed her too much of your emotional availability, but not enough of your emotional boundaries. You offered your heart openly, but you also tolerated behavior you shouldn't have. When she pulled away, you stayed available. When she gave mixed signals, you tried to decode them. When she was cold, you tried harder. She didn't lose interest because you cared. She lost interest because caring too much without self-respect looks like neediness. And a woman can sense neediness even if you never say a word. She feels it in the timing, in the urgency, in the way you responded to her inconsistency. She withdrew because your presence made her feel responsible instead of intrigued. In many cases, she doesn't want you back because you showed her your intentions long before she felt anything meaningful. Women fall gradually, through emotional build-up. Men fall quickly. That emotional difference becomes a problem when you treat her like someone you've already chosen, while she's still evaluating. Your intensity made her skip the chase. It made her skip the discovery phase. It made her skip the mystery. You didn't give the connection room to breathe. She didn't get the slow burn that fuels long-term attraction. She got the entire emotional story before she even turned the first page. This doesn't make you wrong, it makes the timing mismatched. Another reason she doesn't reciprocate is because she has her own internal emotional story that has nothing to do with you. A woman may not want you because she's still attached to someone from her past, because she's emotionally unavailable, because she's addicted to a certain type of man, because she's stuck in her patterns, or because she hasn't healed her own wounds. But instead of acknowledging these internal obstacles, she simply categorizes you as not the one. even if you're far healthier than anyone she's choosing. You're not being rejected for who you are. You're being filtered out by her unhealed patterns, and no amount of effort can break into someone's emotional world if they're still trapped in their old story. Sometimes she doesn't want you because she associates your presence with comfort at a time when she's chasing chaos. It sounds harsh, but many women are more drawn to emotional intensity than emotional stability, especially when they're still figuring themselves out. A man who brings calm energy can feel invisible next to a man who brings unpredictability. She doesn't reject you because you're wrong for her. She rejects you because your energy exposes how unstable her own choices are, and instead of rising to your level, she gravitates toward the emotional patterns she's familiar with. You weren't rejected for lack of value. You were rejected for not fitting the emotional chaos she's used to. There are moments when she doesn't want you back because she sensed you needed her more than she needed you. Women have a primal instinct to follow the energy of a man who is centered, a man who has direction, stability, and purpose. But when your emotions orbit around her, when your sense of identity depends on her attention, she doesn't feel pulled toward you. She feels burdened. She may not be able to explain why she feels distant, but she feels it. She doesn't want to be the source of your confidence or the foundation of your happiness. She wants to be part of your world, not the reason your world exists. Another hidden truth: she may not want you back because you treated her too well at the wrong stage of the connection. When a man treats a woman with loyalty, kindness, effort, and emotional support, before she feels attraction, she categorizes him emotionally in a place that's difficult to escape. She sees him as a giver, but not as someone she feels magnetically pulled toward. Attraction doesn't grow from excessive validation, it grows from emotional balance, a harmony between interest and independence. If she got all the benefits of being close to you without having to reciprocate, she didn't feel compelled to invest, and without investment, attachment doesn't form. Sometimes she doesn't want you because she never got to feel the possibility of losing you. If someone knows you'll stay no matter what, they never feel urgency, they never feel fear of missing out, they never feel the emotional stakes. You are always reachable, always understanding, always patient, and while those traits are admirable, they become counterproductive when given to someone who hasn't chosen you. She didn't pull back because you did something wrong, she pulled back because she felt she didn't have to work for anything. You removed the emotional tension that creates connection. You removed the uncertainty that fuels desire, and without those, she didn't feel anything strong enough to pursue. And finally, sometimes the girl you want doesn't want you back simply because you saw her too clearly before she ever earned that level of commitment. You were already imagining a future while she was barely considering the present. You were emotionally invested while she was emotionally neutral. That mismatch doesn't make either of you wrong. It just means she wasn't aligned with your level of readiness. She didn't reject your heart, she rejected the speed at which you offered it. Because timing matters just as much as compatibility. And if your emotional timing is ahead of hers, she won't move forward, she'll step back. There will be times when she doesn't choose you simply because she never had to feel your absence. You were always there, emotionally, mentally, digitally. You responded fast. You gave attention consistently. You made yourself accessible whenever she wanted connection. And while you thought this would show her your sincerity, all it really did was make your presence predictable. When a woman never experiences emotional distance from you, she never gets to feel the internal shift that creates desire. She never wonders where you are. She never thinks about whether you're moving on. She never imagines losing you. And without that emotional contrast, she doesn't develop the depth of feeling required to choose you. Humans value what they fear losing, and you never allowed her to experience that fear. She also may not want you back because she sensed you were more invested in the idea of her than the reality of who she was. Many men project an ideal onto a woman, who she could be, how loyal she might become, how loving she should be, and the woman feels this projection long before he realizes he's doing it. When she notices that you're in love with potential rather than her genuine personality, it creates emotional distance. She doesn't want to carry the pressure of meeting your expectations, especially if she knows she can't fulfill them. This isn't rejection of you, it's rejection of the emotional fantasy you accidentally built around her. Another reason she doesn't reciprocate is because she felt you were too available emotionally, even during moments when she wasn't giving much back. Women feel uncomfortable when they sense they have emotional power they didn't earn. If she sensed that your mood, confidence, or self-esteem depended on her responses, she instinctively stepped back, not because she wanted to hurt you, but because emotional responsibility is heavy. She doesn't want to feel like your emotional stability depends on her texts or attention. Women crave a man who can stand on his own emotionally, not one who collapses when she pulls away. Your availability didn't fail you, your dependence did. Often she doesn't want you because she sensed you were trying to prove your worth rather than live from it. When a man acts from a place of insecurity, he does too much, too many messages, too many compliments, too many attempts at showing how good he is. And while the intention is pure, the energy communicates lack. Women are more sensitive to energetic presence than words. She doesn't need you to tell her you're worthy. She needs to feel it in how you move, speak, and carry yourself. When your actions come from fear of losing her, rather than confidence in yourself, she feels the imbalance instantly. Sometimes she doesn't want you back because you made her emotional reactions the center of your decisions. You tailored your behavior to match her moods. You avoided conflict so she would stay close. You softened your opinions to avoid pushing her away. All of this sends the message that her comfort is more important than your authenticity. It creates a dynamic where she becomes the leader and you become the responder, and almost every woman eventually loses romantic interest in a man. She feels she has to emotionally lead. She doesn't reject the real you, she rejects the version of you that abandoned himself just to stay close. There are moments when she doesn't want you because your interest exposed her own insecurity. A woman who isn't ready for a healthy connection often pulls away from the man who treats her well, because she doesn't feel worthy of that treatment. She may choose emotionally unavailable men simply because that dynamic feels familiar. Your presence made her confront her own emotional chaos, and instead of rising to meet your energy, she retreat into her comfort zone. This doesn't mean she didn't like you. It means she wasn't in a place where she could accept your stability without feeling overwhelmed by it. Another reason she doesn't reciprocate is because you didn't allow natural tension to build. You gave answers before she asked questions. You showed interest before she felt curiosity. You revealed your emotions before she developed her own. Attraction grows in space, not saturation. By filling every emotional gap instantly, you unintentionally prevented her from feeling the build-up that creates desire. She never had a moment to wonder what you were thinking. She never got to experience the slight discomfort that pulls a woman closer. You eliminated tension before it could form, and without tension, there's no spark. Sometimes she doesn't want you because she sensed you were seeking emotional safety rather than genuine connection. Women can feel when a man is trying to use a relationship to fill a void, loneliness, insecurity, boredom, lack of purpose. She may not articulate it, but she picks up on the energy behind your intentions. If she felt you were trying to find yourself through her, she stepped back to avoid becoming your emotional anchor. Women don't want to complete a man, they want to join a man who has already completed himself. Your desire was real, but she sensed the deeper need beneath it. She also might not want you because she saw you sacrificing too quickly. A woman may appreciate generosity, but she loses respect when a man gives too much without standards. You offered loyalty before she earned it. You gave time she didn't reciprocate. You lowered your boundaries just to stay close. This signals to her that your self-esteem is negotiable, and once she senses that, attraction slowly fades. Women fall for men who protect their standards, not men who abandon them in hope of being chosen. And the truth many men don't want to accept. Sometimes she doesn't want you because the version of you she met wasn't the version of you she respects internally. Not because you lack value, but because you showed up from need instead of strength, from desire instead of direction, from emotion instead of grounded energy. Women respond to men who move with self-trust. The reason she didn't want you is often the same reason you wanted her so intensely. You saw her as something you needed to feel complete. And when desire becomes dependence, it kills the very attraction you hope to create. There comes a point where you start realizing she didn't reject you because she saw something wrong with you. She rejected you because she couldn't feel anything strong enough to move toward you. Women don't choose based on logic, they choose based on emotional gravity. If a woman feels pulled toward a man, she will override doubts, excuses, timing, and even her own fears just to be around him. But if she doesn't feel that pull, nothing you do will generate it. Not kindness, not effort, not attention, not emotional transparency. You weren't chosen not because you lacked qualities, but because you were offering connection from the outside in. Attraction builds from the inside out. And the moment you understand that you cannot convince a woman into wanting you, your entire approach to connection changes. She may also not want you back because your intentions carried a weight she didn't want to hold. You saw something meaningful and moved toward it with sincerity. but sincerity alone can feel heavy if it arrives before she feels any emotional momentum. She picked up on the level of intensity you brought, the hopes, the expectations, the desire to build something, and it didn't match her emotional pace. When a woman senses her feelings are far behind yours, she instinctively withdraws, not out of malice, but to protect both herself and you. She didn't reject who you were, she rejected the speed at which you were offering your heart. Emotional timing matters more than most men realize. Sometimes she doesn't want you because she sensed you were too responsive to her approval. Women feel uncomfortable when they sense a man is adjusting his actions to maintain her interest. It removes the masculine grounding she instinctively searches for. When your energy shifts, depending on how much attention she gives you, she doesn't feel excitement, she feels emotional responsibility. She doesn't want to be the center of your confidence or the source of your self-worth. She wants a man whose sense of self doesn't fluctuate with external validation. When she sensed you were adapting yourself to stay liked, she stepped back because she wanted a partner, not someone living in reaction to her. There are also moments when she didn't choose you because she saw a version of you that was too emotionally available for the level of connection you had. Women trust slowly. Even when they're attracted, they observe, they evaluate. If you opened your emotional world too quickly, it may have made her question whether you do this with everyone. Women need to see that your vulnerability is selective, not something you hand out easily. If she felt you were eager to attach, she wondered whether that eagerness came from authentic connection or emotional emptiness. You didn't scare her away with depth, you overwhelmed her with speed. In many cases, the reason she doesn't want you is because she sensed a mismatch between your words and your internal state. You may have believed you were confident, but she felt the hesitation behind your compliments. You may have believed you were stable, but she sensed the anxiety in your energy. Women read emotional signals the way men read body language. She can feel insecurity even when it's wrapped in politeness. She can feel emotional hunger even when it's disguised as interest. She can feel uncertainty even when you're trying to project calmness. She didn't reject your personality, she reacted to the energy beneath it. Another reason she didn't choose you is because she didn't feel the emotional leadership that makes a woman feel safe enough to invest. Leadership isn't dominance, it's direction. It's the ability to guide the connection without forcing it, to express interest without losing composure, to show strength without suppressing emotion. If she sensed you were waiting for her to take the lead, waiting for her to text first, waiting for her to show interest, waiting for her to confirm her feelings, she lost interest. Women don't attach to men who ask them to decide the direction of the connection. They attach to men who reveal their intentions with calmness and then move forward with or without her. She might not want you back because she didn't see the version of you that exists when you're fully in your masculine frame. She saw you while you were emotionally influenced by desire, fear, and uncertainty. She saw you trying to get her instead of simply being yourself. When a man is disconnected from his natural masculine energy, discipline, direction, purpose, mystery, emotional composure, a woman unconsciously categorizes him as someone who isn't ready for the type of connection she wants. She didn't reject your core, she rejected the version of you that was distorted by your feelings for her. There are women who won't choose you because they are chasing external excitement rather than emotional stability. You didn't get rejected for lack of value. You got rejected because you represented peace at a time in her life where she was chasing stimulation. Some women don't want healthy love until life humbles them. They don't want stability until instability exhausts them. They don't want maturity until chaos breaks them. If she's in this phase, no amount of value on your end can change her trajectory. She didn't not want you. She wasn't ready for someone like you. Sometimes she didn't want you because you didn't show enough depth early on. Not every woman is looking for mystery or unpredictability. Some women are looking for a man whose presence carries gravity. A man who has lived, struggled, reflected, grown. A man who doesn't enter her life with the energy of seeking validation. If she sensed you were still defining yourself through other people, she withdrew. Not because she disliked you, but because she didn't feel emotional strength in you yet. Women aren't drawn to perfection, they're drawn to presence. If she didn't sense that in you at the time, she didn't feel the pull required to pursue anything deeper. And the deepest truth of all, the girl you want often doesn't want you back because you approach the connection trying to win her before winning yourself. A woman can sense when a man is undervaluing himself. She can sense when he is seeking external completion. She can sense when he is pursuing her because he hasn't yet built his inner foundation. She didn't reject your heart. She rejected the emotional posture you stood in when you offered it. Once you start building yourself first, your confidence, your purpose, your discipline, your emotional control, everything changes. The women who once overlooked you begin seeing you differently, but more importantly, you begin seeing yourself differently. And when that inner shift happens, rejection stops feeling personal. It becomes clarity. There comes a moment in your growth where you stop asking, "Why didn't she want me?" and you start asking a far more powerful question. Why did I want someone who couldn't appreciate me? That's when everything shifts. You start seeing how much of your desire came from scarcity, the fear of not finding someone else, the pressure to make the connection work, the loneliness you tried to quiet through her presence. When you look back honestly, you realize you weren't drawn to her because she was the perfect match. You were drawn to her because you weren't grounded in yourself. She filled an emotional gap you hadn't addressed yet. That realization doesn't make you bitter, it makes you self-aware. It shows you that your attraction wasn't destiny, it was a reflection of your internal state. As you continue to evolve, you start recognizing that the problem wasn't that she didn't want you, the problem was that you wanted her before you built the version of yourself that commands respect, effortlessly. Women aren't drawn to potential in men, the same way men are drawn to potential in women. They're drawn to direction, discipline, depth, and emotional consistency. When you wanted her, you might have been moving through life without structure, without purpose, or without emotional solidity, and that energy silently told her you weren't ready for the level of connection you imagined. You weren't rejected because you were wrong, you were redirected because the version of you that deserved her wasn't built yet. You eventually understand that you approached her from an emotional place instead of a grounded place. Women aren't repelled by emotion, they're repelled by emotional instability. When your feelings for her were the center of your actions, you made her the focal point of your identity without even realizing it. She felt that on a subconscious level. A woman cannot connect deeply with a man who is orbiting around her emotionally. She connects with the man who is rooted in himself and simply chooses to bring her into his life. Once you see how much of your interest was driven by need rather than self-trust, the pieces finally click into place. There are times when you look back and realize you were trying to offer a woman a version of love she hadn't earned. You gave her consistency, attention, care, and emotional access at a stage where she had given you nothing. This creates an imbalance, not because you're wrong for giving, but because she never had to work for anything. Humans don't commit to what they don't invest in. You weren't rejected because you were too much. You were rejected because she didn't have to contribute anything to match your energy. And when someone invests nothing, they feel nothing. She didn't value you because she didn't build anything with you. Another truth emerges: she didn't want you back because you didn't show her that you had boundaries. Women don't lose interest when men show affection. They lose interest when men abandon self-respect. Every time you allowed disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect, you lowered your own value in her eyes. She didn't step away because she disliked your kindness. She stepped away because your kindness came without limits. Healthy women want a man who is giving and discerning. If she sensed you would tolerate anything just to keep her, she stopped seeing you as someone she could respect romantically. Eventually, you'll realize that she didn't want you because she sensed you hadn't yet become the version of yourself you were meant to be. Not the confident version, not the secure version, not the self-led version. She met you in a chapter of your life where you were still forming your identity, still fighting internal battles, still searching for validation from things outside of yourself. She didn't reject your essence, she rejected the unfinished version of you. And that's not an insult, it's motivation. Because the man you're becoming now is someone she wouldn't have been able to handle anyway. You start seeing that the women who reject you often mirror the parts of yourself that need work. If she overlooked you, it's because you overlooked your own potential. If she didn't value you, it's because you didn't anchor your own standards. If she thought she could do better, it's because you hadn't yet become the man who proves her wrong simply by existing. Her rejection becomes a reflection, not of inadequacy, but of misalignment. And misalignment is never a loss, it's clarity. It prevents you from investing your emotional energy into something that doesn't match your future. As you evolve, you stop viewing her disinterest as something personal and start viewing it as life's way of protecting you. You begin understanding that if she had accepted you back then, she would have entered your life during a phase where you were still too focused on others and not focused enough on yourself. You would have lost direction. You would have repeated old patterns. You would have built a connection on unstable foundations. Her disinterest wasn't rejection, it was redirection. It kept you from settling into a version of life that wasn't meant for you. When you see rejection as protection, It stops hurting and starts guiding you. And then the real shift happens. You no longer want her the way you once did. Not because she changed, not because you developed resentment, but because you grew into a man who finally sees himself clearly. The emotional pedestal you once placed her on disappears. You stop seeing her as the prize and start realizing you were the prize the whole time. The desire you once felt fades naturally because it was built on insecurity, not compatibility. When you become grounded, disciplined, self-respecting, and focused, you stop craving anyone who couldn't recognize your worth in the first place. Your standards rise automatically. Finally, you understand the full truth. The girl you wanted didn't want you back, because you hadn't yet become the man who naturally attracts the kind of woman who values depth, intention, direction, and self-respect. You weren't rejected because you lacked something. You were rejected because you were in the early stages of your evolution. She wasn't meant to choose you then, because you weren't meant to stay the man you were. And now that you're becoming the stronger, clearer, more grounded version of yourself, you'll realize something powerful. The right woman won't need convincing. She won't need chasing. She won't need pressure. She will choose you because she can feel the substance in your energy and the stability in your presence.